What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Joe Culpepper Outdoors. I'm Joe Culpepper. First off, like I did in the last video, I want to say thank you so much for the support, the comments on the videos, and the views and everything. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate everyone who's been subscribing lately. It really helps me kind of know what I need to keep doing. So if there's a specific type of video you want to see, just let me know in the comments and I'll do my best to make that happen. But without further ado, we'll go ahead and get into this one. So today, I don't know if you want to say this has been a long time coming or anything, but I'm going to go ahead and go over my budget bow build. So I bought this bow in January. Actually, I think it was like the last day of January when I actually bought it. I had it for a couple weeks, had some issues. Got a new cam put on the top. That didn't fix the problem, so we put a whole new limb set and new cam on the bottom as well. That didn't fix the problem, so Life Outdoors, where I bought the bow from, bought it brand new, they contacted the company, and the company took the old bow that was giving me trouble and gave me a brand new one. So I just want to go ahead and say shout out to that company for doing that. I really, really appreciate it. And I would definitely recommend this company for their, I guess you would say, their warranty and everything on their product. Even though this is not a flagship bow, this is not a super high-end expensive bow, but they were still good enough to send me a new one. And it actually feels like, to me, the new one shoots a little bit better. I think it's probably coming in a couple pounds heavier on the draw weight, which is fine with me. Because like I said in my last video, I just put my Mathews up to 75 pounds, and this one's set at 70. The first one we checked it was like 67, which is close, but I think this one's probably 70, 71. So without any more talking, this is my budget bow for this year. This is the Darton Consequence. Now, the reason that I picked this bow over like a Mathews Lift 29.5 or a Hoyt Alpha X30 is the price point. That was number one. Number two is the draw lengths on this bow will go to. So I do have a longer draw length. I'm right at 30 inches in pretty much everything but Mathews, apparently. I went up shooting 30 inches on the Elite. I shoot 30 inches on this bow. I don't have any problems. Went down to 29.5 in the Mathews, and it feels very comparable to this. So maybe that would change if I went to like a Lift 29.5 or a Phase 4 29. But just for argument's sake, the draw length on this bow was the second biggest factor that really made this bow stand out. So this bow, and I actually have the card on this, will go from 26 inches all the way to 31.5 at a 29.5 inch axle to axle. So this is a shorter bow. This is definitely more of an Eastern hunting bow, in a lot of people's opinion. But I have taken shots out to 100 yards with this bow, and I'm just so impressed with how this bow shoots. Now, once we get out to about 60, 70 yards or so, the Phase 433 does differentiate itself because it is a longer axle to axle. But for this bow, the price point it's in and the performance it gives is very impressive, very, very impressive. So just kind of going over my initial thoughts, first thoughts when I put this bow in my hand, I went into Life Outdoors, and I don't remember why I was there, but they had just got in 3 Darton Consequences. They have the green, they had the tan, and the black. They didn't have the camo one. But me personally, I don't care for a camouflage bow. That's just my opinion. I don't really like how they look. Not saying that there's anything wrong with them. It's just my personal preference. I like the solid colors. So they had just got these bows in. So I asked them, because they had never had Darton before, you know, why did y'all bring these bows in? And they told me they brought it in because the Darton rep came by and had one of these bows and let the guy that owns Life Outdoors actually shoot it. And he was so impressed with how the bow shot for the price point that he went ahead and bought 3 of them. So they took and tied a loop on, you know, put a whisker biscuit on. And I took a couple shots with it, and I said, wow, this is really a really good shooting bow for the money, especially. And with it being this shorter axle to axle, but will go out to 31.5 inches, is it's very, very impressive. So I wound up taking and doing some looking and getting some money set aside, and went back and bought this bow. And this one is set up exactly how the one that we sent back to Darton was. So there's nothing changed between the 2 of them. I'm shooting this bow the exact same. And like I said, I think it's coming in a couple of pounds heavier on the draw weight. So, of course, like I said, this one is set at 30 inches. That's my draw length. We have a QAD. I don't know exactly what they call this rest. HDX maybe. I mean, I don't know if you can read that or not, but just a simple QAD drop away rest. This one is cable driven. We've got the CBE Tactic Hybrid single pin. So again, I don't know if you can see that. I tried to turn this light over here off because it just was putting like a glare. So I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to actually film in this room. But CBE Tactic Hybrid single pin. And we've got a Control Freak 15-inch stabilizer. The reason I went with the long stabilizer is this bow is very top heavy. So if I don't have the stabilizer, it really wants to come back on you. And it still does want to come back a little bit. But if you just kind of let it sit there, it's going to tip forward instead of tip back, which is how I want my bows to balance, for hunting at least. So nothing crazy on this setup, nothing ridiculous. Like I said, this bow is built as more of a budget bow. So, but I know there are some things that I could do to make this bow more budget friendly, if you want to look at it that way. You don't need a 15-inch stabilizer. You could put, you know, like a 6-inch stabilizer or an 8-inch stabilizer. You get like a bee stinger, I think it's what they call them, like $50 or so. Or there's a bunch of different options and stabilizers that you could go with that would actually be less expensive to save you some money. You could go with a different rest, or you could go with a whisker biscuit on this. You could go with a like a Hamskea primer, like was on my my Elite Envision. You could go with a fixed 3 or 5 pin sight if you didn't need the adjustments. So you could really take this bow, even though it's built, in my opinion, as a more budget setup. You could make this bow even more budget friendly. So there are a few different numbers out there for prices. Some people are selling them for $649. I paid $699 for this one. That seems to be the most common price. I think Lancaster gets the $649 pricing, and some other bigger retailers or dealers get the better pricing just because of bulk selling more, selling more bows to a particular distributor, or however you want to put it. I paid $699 for this bow. Already had the sight, so rest and stabilizer and the setup and everything. I think I was $1,100, somewhere around there. So That's still less than a flagship bow fully set up. And even if you had to put a sight on here, if you went with this same sight, you'd still be under $1,400. And the quiver I've got, you can see I've got a mount here. I don't like to shoot with that quiver on just because of how it's set and everything. I do want to put a 2-piece quiver on this bow and my Mathews in the future. But you can get just a cheap quiver, you know, 20 to 40 bucks, and be fine just to hunt with. I wouldn't recommend shooting this long distance at deer or elk or anything, but I would definitely recommend this as a budget, you know, tree stand, ground blind bow. And it does great. It does what I need it to do. It shoots really good. So it's actually sighted in for these Easton 6.0 Sonics. And I was going to go buy a dozen Gold Tip Hunter XTs, or a half dozen, depending, of those Gold Tip Hunter XTs, or maybe the Easton 6.5s. But since I got these new Victory Rips in the 300 spine, and I've been so impressed with how they shoot out of my Mathews, I'm considering just taking and adjusting the consequence to shoot these smaller diameter arrows, and just using the same arrow out of both bows, so I can not have the confusion going from bow to bow with different arrows and everything like that. So that's kind of a work in progress, you know, trying to figure out exactly how I'm gonna set this bow up as far as arrows for hunting this year. But just to give you an idea, so this is at 70 pounds, 30 inches, very smooth, anchors really well. And going from the Mathews to this bow, of course, is a shorter axle to axle, so it's not quite as steady. But for what it is, I mean, it's unbelievable how steady this bow holds compared to some of the others that are in this same axle to axle, and even in the same price range. That was my stabilizer hitting my chair. So I've been watching a lot of videos about the consequence, and reading a lot of articles about it and everything, just to get an idea kind of what I was getting into, because I started out shooting a Mission, which is made by Mathews. Then I went to the Elite, and went from Elite to Mathews, and I love my Phase 4. I really do. And the intent when I bought this consequence was not to replace the Phase 4. It was simply to complement the Phase 4 by providing me with a shorter bow that will still perform really well even at longer distances. Now, as I said, the Mathews does overtake the Darton in shootability past about 60 yards. But how many people are there that could ethically take a shot at a deer even at 60 yards, much less further than that? I'm not one of those people that would feel comfortable taking that shot every time. If I had 100% perfect conditions and I had practiced a lot and I was calm and collected, I would take a shot at 60 yards, but I would not advise anyone to do that, nor would I want to do that on a regular basis. That's just not something I think we as bow hunters should do, just from an ethical standpoint. But if you're wanting to get a budget bow just to get into bow hunting, and you don't want to go the route of buying one of those Bear RTH packages from Bass Pro, or you don't want to get like the Mission bow, I would 100% recommend the Darton Consequence to you. even if you're a longer draw length like me, this bow is going to fit you better than most because it will go to that even longer draw length than mine, which is very is very hard to find in a short axle-to-axle bow. So just to kind of give some comparisons for you guys, when the other Consequence started giving me all them problems, and Darton said they were going to send me a new bow, I went back up to Life Outdoors, and they had a Lift 29.5, an Alpha X30, and a Bowtech CP30. And I said, I just want to shoot these other bows just in case. I would rather trade the Darton for another one just because it's giving me these problems. And like I said, this new bow has not given me any problems yet, so I have no plans to get rid of it. But they set up the, I think the first one I shot was the Lift 29.5. Now, I shot the owner's lift, which is set, I think, 28 inches. Probably 75 pounds, I'm not sure. But at 28 inches, it shot great. But when you get into the max draw length of a bow, things start to feel a lot different. And I mean a lot different. So when I shot the Hoyt Alpha X30, just to give you a kind of what was going through my mind, about halfway through it started great. It started really good. But then right there, about halfway through the draw cycle, it hit this point where it felt like it got really hard to pull through, or a lot more difficult to pull through than it did in the first half. So I didn't like that. And the Bowtech CP30, it kind of had the opposite. It was harder to get going, but once you got about halfway through, if you kept putting the same amount of pressure, you were just going to bring it right back. So I don't like draw cycles that are inconsistent, or that feel inconsistent to me. Now, if you shoot a Bowtech CP30 or a Hoyt Alpha X30 or whatever, and it feels great to you, I'm happy for you. That's wonderful. I'm just giving my personal opinions, what I felt when I drew the bows back. So I would definitely advise anyone out there to not purchase a bow if you max out the draw length, because it's a night and day difference how the bow draws and shoots. Now, you may get more speed out of, or I say you will get more speed out of a shorter axle-to-axle bow than you will a longer axle-to-axle bow, but it's more comfortable to shoot those longer axle-to-axle bows when you have that 29.5 to 30 plus inch draw length. And I understand I'm kind of in a sweet spot, I guess you could say, because I can still shoot most of your shorter, the shorter axle-to-axle bows, even though I max them out. I can still shoot them at my draw length. But it's not a smooth draw. It's not a fun experience to shoot. So for my draw length, the Darton Consequence, a $700 bow, actually felt better than even a Phase 4 29, which theoretically, I should be extremely comfortable with the Phase 4 platform because I have the Phase 4 33, and I love that bow. But the Phase 4 29, I did shoot one of those because I have one used, set at 70 pounds, 30 inches, and to me, the Consequence just shot better because it has that longer, or it will go to a longer draw length. So it's a smoother draw for me, and just feels better. So that's something I just want to kind of bring to your attention. If you do have a longer draw length and you're looking at bows, if you haven't really dived into the archery rabbit hole, so to speak, keep an eye on your draw lengths because you don't want to max a bow out. Even the Elite Envision, when I went to a 30-inch draw from 29.25, the draw cycle was very different, and I didn't notice it that much at the time, but going back and looking at things, yeah, that bow got really harsh in the back wall. So what that bow wanted to do is right before you hit that back wall, there was this little tiny hump that you had to push over at the longer draw length. It wasn't like that at the 29 1/4. There was a little, ever so slight hump, but at 30 inches, that bow wants to come back and almost lock out, and then you have to roll over that hump. So it is very different how they shoot and feel, and actually how they will perform. So all that being said, I'm not getting rid of the Mathews Phase 4. I love my Phase 4 33, and I want to shoot that bow for several years to come. And the Dart Consequence is a great shooting bow for me. It feels good to me, and I want to shoot that bow as long as I can. So I will probably not post a new bow video for a while, but just know that I'm comfortable with the bows that I have now. I'm happy with the bows I have, and the only other, I reckon you could say, the only other type of bow that I don't have now that I would benefit from would be a target bow. But that's not going to happen right now because target bows are very expensive, and I just spent a lot of money setting up this Consequence, and I've got to do some other things like buy a battery for my boat, and batteries are not cheap. If you know, you know. It's not fun, but you have to do it. So I think that's going to do it for today. I'll try to make another video coming up about some different components on bows, you know, accessories, stabilizers, rests, sights, things like that, things I like, things I dislike. That's probably going to be the next video I put up, so just let me know in the comments if that's something that you're interested in, or if there is something else that you would like to see. I'm open to suggestions as long as they're good suggestions and it's not something completely off the wall and crazy. Don't ask me to go buy and build a Hoyt Alpha X 33 and compare it to the Phase 4 33. That's not going to happen. Now, if Hoyt sent me an Alpha X 33, then yes, I would compare it, but they're not going to do that. So, as I said, just give me some realistic video ideas, and I'll try to get them up, and so we can look at those, or let y'all look at them. And yeah, I think that's gonna do it for this one. So everybody stay safe, stay in the outdoors. God bless you, and I'll catch you on the next one.